Black Cat Lounge is sponsored by Beacon, a home for those who have a passion for filmmaking and the unusual. The Haunted Hiddensdale House. Those who walk there do not walk alone. Paraware, apparel for the action-seeking paranormal investigator. Dragonfly art and soul for all of your magical, metaphysical, and spiritual needs. Mystery Control, your go-to feed for science, magic, true crime, the paranormal, and so much more. Niagara, one of the top rated destinations in Western New York. The Black Cat Lounge is part of the Paraflix Entertainment Network. Tim Shaw here. It's always good to see each and every one of you today. And I have to say that we've got a great show for you tonight. And I'm so glad that you guys are here. So anyway, let us go and welcome. I want to welcome somebody very, very influential. And they're a new sponsor. They are a new sponsor. And I love them so much. They are, of course, the amazing Dark Moon Press with I guess captained is probably the best way to describe it. Captained by a gentleman by the name of Eric Werner, and they have an amazing array of books there, and they're just a great, great company to work with. So go out there, check out their website, and check out their books, because I think you're going to be surprised. There's a lot of books that you can't find anywhere else. So, Dark Moon Press. Guys, we have had a great week going on. Everything's been so good. Tomorrow, as many of you know, I will be wandering the cemeteries and highways and byways, and I will have a shovel with me, and I will be looking for tombstones, because why? It's something that we all love to do. And it's, it's amazing when you get a chance to go and bring a name back to a person, because of the fact that these stones have been knocked over and lost, and we don't know what happened to them, why, but it's just so amazing to be able to have that chance to be able to go and just work with it. And there's nothing better. You feel like Indiana Jones as you're down there and you're digging up these stones, and you're out there just trying to figure out who's what, where, and where every plot is. So, guys, that's what I'll be doing tomorrow. And, of course, I do have the Black Cat Lounge t-shirts in there, and we are going to be all set to rock and roll with that. And it's going to be a lot of fun. And we have some great people coming in. A good friend there, Joseph. Joseph was I just saw him and Amy up at the Lewiston Library last week, Monday, where I did a talk for the teenagers, and it was just a great time. And I love being able to go and have a great time with people, because of the fact that we get a chance to speak and just, best way to describe it is hang around. So anyway, let me bring on a gentleman that I met, I don't know, a couple years ago, and he is, he's the executive director, owner of a location that is amazing. I'm going to tell you, I feel this location is amazing, because you guys know what kind of a history guy I am, how much I love history. I think history is so important. Too many people just seem to have been taught history in a two-dimensional way. And this is not only just a history museum, this is a living history museum, where it is, when you go there, you do take a step in the past. So, guys, may I introduce to you good friend, and this guy is amazing. I'm just going to tell each and every one of you, I have so much respect for him because of the fact of what he's done with this location. So I want to bring and introduce you guys to a good guy, Tyler Booth. Oops, there we go, Tyler. I knew you were here someplace. Oh, where are you? You disappeared again, Tyler. Well, we'll get him back on pretty soon. Anyway, Tyler is one of those guys that is a total mover and shaker. He is just works at this place, and it is the amount of work that they have done there is something that is so impressive, very, very impressive. He's gone, and I mean, him and Jonathan and the staff are amazing what they've done. I think we have him there. Oh, there he is. Hello, Mr. Tyler. How are you? Let me bring you in there.
I'm good, thank you. Yeah.
You're
sorry, I got kicked as soon as you started your nice little intro for me.
Well, you know why? You know why? Because the spirits are there. I'm just telling you. You know, they like to mess with electronics over there. So I'm just, earlier I kidded you about a woman in black walking behind you. So if anybody out there sees anybody walking behind Tyler, don't tell him right now. Okay, don't tell Tyler. Welcome to the show. Thank you for taking the time to come tonight. You know what? Let me ask you. Let me just start off about the location. I've seen it in its present incarnation where you really worked on it. Just beautiful location, beautiful place. What was it that attracted you guys? Because this is amazing. Because it wasn't always in this beautiful shape now, was it?
Far from it. So, honestly, I don't know what really attracted anyone to it. I remember I met the tavern really, really rough. In winter, it was covered in snow. There was tarps over it. It had been completely ransacked. It was definitely a sight for sore eyes. But I don't know if it was just something about the stance of it. It's definitely a unique little building, but it was one of those things that just kind of caught you. And even if you didn't know the history, it made me want to know more about it. And then I got diving into it, and oh boy, that was a can of worms. And once you know the history, it's sold. But yeah, I have a hard time remembering those like early days of what actually caught my eye of the place, because now it's the tavern. It's kind of everything. So
well,
it's something.
I've always been interested in history. We lost. There we are. Lost me. Lost you. There we go. We're back. Well, have you always been interested in history? Is that why that you kind of really were brought into this?
Yeah, I am a history buff for taverns specifically. So I didn't actually know this was a tavern when I first met it. So that was kind of a pleasant surprise. But my history background is in taverns. I come from a tavern family like the people that built this one. So that's always been my passion. I studied in college taverns specifically, trying to trace history through taverns. Mm-hmm. So I definitely have an extensive background in that and more the linguistic side of taverns and all kinds of unnecessary information. But that is my shtick.
Well, it's interesting because people don't often, especially this generation, people don't really understand the importance of a tavern, whether it was just a rough and tumble place, or it was something that was a little bit more, I'll just say civilized, like a stagecoach stop or something of that nature. But that was a major gathering point, wasn't it, of people and where they could get news and information out from the hinterlands, wasn't it?
Always. I mean, I think all taverns were a bit rough and tough until we got into like hotel days when they became a little more what we know today. But definitely, if you think of the rough and tough taverns of TV and movies, that was real. That was a real deal. But yeah, I always say taverns were the precipice of everything that we know. So anything that we consider societal norms today came from a tavern. It was, at its most basic, a tavern is a public house. So it was someone's house you went to get out of the elements, and that someone had to do everything and anything that you could possibly need for them. So food and drink was really just the basics. It came down to everything from meeting halls to funeral halls to your politicians. You voted in this room that I'm in right now. I'm actually in the gentleman's room. Behind me is the original post office, the door and the window back there. Our cage bar was to my left. So they were a one-stop shop for everything and anything you needed.
Let's talk a little bit about the land on which the tavern sits.
Oh yeah,
it has an amazing history to it, doesn't it?
yeah. So part of that, I usually tell people everything to this point was considered the endless woods to Forsyths. So you kind of picture that it was extremely dense forest. They chose this spot because it was actually a Native American crossroads long before Europeans got here. So there was a freshwater spring here. There was a semi-cleared space. We don't know how much of it was actually cleared, but there was enough that they could come here with their animals and get settled. But it was chosen because it was at a crossroads and because it had fresh water. Those two things alone are amazing to have for a tavern, obviously. But this particular crossroads has had people living on it for thousands of years, which is something pretty rare in Western New York. We don't really think of thousands of years of history here, but the ridge road that we are on is a natural shoreline that became a natural pathway. So it has been the center of a community for much longer than any of us would like to try and trace back history. And also, I give a very, very long tour of that. Anyone wants to know that history.
Well, let's face it.
That's the basic.
Everybody that knows anything about that area understands that some of the artifacts that you guys find out there, some of the stone tools and all that, that goes back almost to Neolithic times. We're talking 3,000 to 5,000 years
Absolutely
old.
could.
We're talking about mound building. We're talking, because you do have the burial mounds up at the art park area. You have so much there. And then you have I think it was the Neutrals were on both sides of the Niagara River at that time, and then they were conquered by the Seneca, and then the Seneca, that was all part of the land. And I think now I'm going to express my nerdism here, because I do know that in the 1400s, that's when the Iroquois Confederacy was formed. So I did know a little bit about that area. So that's another reason why I'm so excited about this place where we're at. Now, we talk about roads. This was not a conventional road, because there's a lot of people automatically think, it's they've been watching the old black and white movies, and they're and you see this hard packed, sometimes gravel road that they're walking on, or they're in a wagon going to. We're not talking that type of a road, are we?
No, I suppose you have to think of it more like if you ever go to a state park and you walk just a well-beaten path through the woods, might be kind of sandy, gravelly. It's just been packed by foot. That's more like what we're talking here. The records say that it was only 14 inches wide of actual packed road. And then off that 14 inches, you were talking swamp, your snakes, all of it. Yeah, definitely not a carriage road yet, not till much after War of 1812.
Well, a lot of people don't realize, first of all, when you say snakes, my wife, I can already feel my wife upstairs already. But people don't realize that Western New York, especially Niagara County, where you guys are, that was a hotbed for rattlesnakes. And you don't really see that up there anymore. Most of them are like the southern tier now.
Yeah, we do still have them. So south of us is Rattlesnake Ridge. So all those stories of snake oil salesmen, that was this. That was what we did here. Our rattlesnakes were a huge, huge problem in the day. And when we got here, we still had rattlesnakes in the building. They haven't seen one for maybe 8 years. But yeah, that was a problem.
Don't tell me that. I'm in your basement all the time. Please don't tell me those things.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, The rattlesnake that was here was not in the basement. It was actually in the attic. So basement's safer.
Nice. Okay. Now I'm really gonna now. Well, okay. I know where Lockport General is, so life is good. Thanks a lot, Tyler. Thanks a lot. You really made me want to come out there now and really wander out.
It's been a long time. I haven't seen a snake this year actually anywhere, which is surprising.
Yeah, it is true, especially well, it's been a rainy year, so that makes a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about the Forsyths. Tell us a little bit about them, because I found that to be very, very their whole story is so very interesting.
Yeah, so we break them down into 3 lines because our 3 proprietors were so wildly different and had amazing family histories in their own right. But basically, all 3 of our proprietors, I should say, were from the earliest colonial settlement in America. They're all directly from England, coming here and trying to settle at the Plymouth colony. Mm-hmm. So Forsyths, they came in as soldiers. They have a long history in Scotland of more or less backing the British. They got a lot of land in the Bruce Wars. So they came here as soldiers, stayed soldiers. When it came to American Revolution, they stayed loyalists. Right. There was a lot to that. They were part of the French Asylum. If anyone knows that story, that was kind of France trying to make a colony here in the thick of the wilderness down south. Forsyths were there, being French royalty in their blood. They're actually descended from Charlemagne. So a lot of families just in that. But they became loyalists. It wasn't entirely their decision. A lot of that was spread by a few massacres that they unfortunately were part of. They lost their land, it was burned. The Native American allies attacked them as well, so they had a hard go. They ended up being imprisoned at present-day Rochester, which was the Seneca at the time. So they were stuck there for quite a long time. This was when John was really just a baby still. And then a British knight raid freed them. They ended up living at Fort Niagara for quite a long time. And reportedly were so useful at Fort Niagara, and also given their long, extensive family history with the Crown, they were given a huge amount of land at the top of the Horseshoe Falls in Canada.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Over 1,000 acres when it was all said and done.
Wow.
So they went to Canada, and they opened the first tavern in Canada to try and settle a British colony there for all the loyalists that had to come over. So that was kind of where they got their tavern start. So very, very prominent family. They own pretty much all the Horseshoe Falls now that we know. Everything from, if you know Lundy's Lane, that's where their actual house was. There used to be Ukrainian church where their tavern was, but that's, I think, gone now. But they were very, very prominent in Canada. And then, oddly enough, John was the youngest child, and his next older brother, they were a bit of the family rebels. So they got into smuggling. We know they smuggled booze and other things across the border. And then they got into smuggling fugitive slaves, which was good money in its day and also extremely illegal. So the idea was once fugitive slaves from America crossed the border, the Crown would let them free.
Right.
So they made a pretty good business doing that, especially since they owned so much water frontage there that they could really do whatever they wanted. So they got caught doing that a couple times. They ended up being jailed, and British jails were not American jails. So in Canada, when you were put in jail, you had to wait for the judge to come from Britain to try you. So they didn't really know what was going to happen, how long they'd be there. And it was also primitive. I imagine that it was probably just a log hut that they were locked into. Mm-hmm. So somehow, some way, they escaped. They crossed the border to America. They separated, unfortunately. They both reportedly went to Black Rock and then took the what is now Main Street up. John supposedly, and this has been contested a little bit, John had an aunt who was staying in Leroy, At the time, it was Ganson Settlement, but it's now Leroy, New York.
Right.
So he had an aunt who was courting a prominent tavern owner there. So somehow he ended up there. We've never actually found this lady's name, though, so I can't actually say for sure that this happened. But that's the family story anyway. But one way or another, he ended up at Ganson Settlement, living in this tavern, working. And that's where he met Polly. Polly was our whole other side of the story. She came from another very old family in New England. Her father fought in the Sullivan expedition. He also fought at Bunker Hill, all kinds of wild battles. He was the real American soldier man. So he also ended up fleeing America. Sullivan expedition, he gave up halfway. He had a change of heart. If you know anything about Sullivan expedition, it was a brutal scorched earth campaign where they pretty much marched all across New York State, all the way to the Genesee River, and decimated every Native American population they could get their hands on.
Well, that was because of British ally depredations along Cherry Valley, which was the breadbasket of the Continental Army, right?
Yep, and that's
I know a couple things, Tyler. You know.
Yeah, no, you're right on. He actually lost his trigger finger at Cherry Valley, so he went through that and got his revenge, and then decided, you know what, I don't think this is for me anymore. So he ended up living with the Seneca. He was adopted by the Seneca, which is pretty cool. Wow. Was good friends with Red Jacket, Hot Bread, Jack Berry. He names a lot of them. And he actually opened the first grist mill west of the Genesee. Shortly after that, of course, the Europeans came through and we said, hey, we're going to start westward expansion. So he lost his first land holdings, ended up buying a legitimate tavern in now American Colony, and founded his own tavern there, which very quickly became its settlement, Ganson Settlement. Very similar to this one, he had his own cemetery there, he had his own mill. It was a very hopping business. However, he had that Native American reputation. His tavern is not highly regarded in its history books. It was definitely that rough and tumble place, much more so than this was. Mm-hmm. A lot of people just talk about drunken Native Americans throwing beer and really having fights out in the streets. It was that kind of cool tavern that we all hope for in like the movies. Like that was the real thing. So that's where John met Polly. Polly was his only daughter. She came with, unfortunately, her mother died back home, so she came with her mother's corpse, as morbid as that is, and buried them at the tavern. And she lived there until she was a teenager, met John, and almost immediately they moved out. So come 19, that's where I'm at. 1801, they contracted to come out here speculatively. Being from two prominent families, we don't really know how the Howland Company got their number, but they showed up there, had them agree to join this venture, and they just kind of went on the frontier and found this place. Well, so presumably they came in 1801, built what was here. We don't know if this building was here at that point, if it was something more primitive, but they actually came here in 1805 with their children and all of their farm animals and opened the tavern right away, spring 1805. And so
it was a
wild stuff.
It was originally a log cabin, right?
So we don't really know. So the main part of the tavern is how Land Company built. So it is a Dutch construction post frame building. So that is circa 1805. We only know that it opened in 1805, but we don't know if that was built 1801 to 1805, or if there was something here that maybe John built really rough and the Howland Company just built this nice tavern for them. That we really don't know. We do know, however, that off the back of that original building, there was what was considered a lean-to structure that disappeared sometime in the early 1900s. So I hypothesize, I believe that there was a really primitive like lean-to circa 1801, and that tavern was finished by 1805 for them to make the call of bring your animals now. So
that makes sense. Yeah, that makes
yeah,
sense. Well, you know
hopefully
what?
we'll know more in the future, but that's
Well,
what we know now.
it's kind of tragic because we do know about the War of 1812,
Mhm.
and a lot of people. Well, I shouldn't say we know about it, but most Americans have no clue about the War of 1812. It's a
This is
big thing.
true.
It's still a big thing in Canada, but it's not so much in the United States.
I think you
And
learned about it in 4th or 5th grade, if you can remember that far back.
listen, Moses didn't have chisels to go and chisel all those stone tablets for me back then. Okay, Tyler, but I mean, it's amazing because of the fact that just right around the beginning of it, John was killed, wasn't he? It was accident, right? Like a farm
Yeah,
accident.
we're not 100% sure how John died, but he died right at the beginning of the war. Yeah.
So, I mean, the running of this tavern, and it was an important way stop along that Niagara,
Mhm.
the Niagara / now Ridge Road. Uh, she was running it basically with her children, wasn't she?
Yeah, she was here with 4 children at the time, the youngest really just being born. So
That's
that was a
amazing.
scary time for sure. I don't think any of us could ever imagine that. Especially now we have the fortunate world of when there's a war, we know what's happening. There's newspapers, there's news. Back then, she was out here in the dark. I mean, when the British invaded, they stopped here and said the British are coming, like the famous words, the British are coming, the British are coming, and then they left. They kept on going. So she really had no idea what was happening around her and no way to know. And
And a
obviously she's
lot,
not going to get on her horse and ride to go
yeah.
find out with her 4 kids.
Well,
So
a lot of people don't
terrifying.
realize that U.S. forces from Niagara had crossed over. They were in what's York? Was it? I think York, Niagara,
Queenstown
Queenstown.
is the
I'm sorry,
closest. Yeah.
Queenstown, and Niagara on the Lake, and they had Fort George. They had gone and taken, and they retreated and they burnt everything in the fall and December,
Mm-hmm.
which left
Mm-hmm.
all the loyalist and Canadian families destitute. So there was a lot of anger, and British forces basically snuck across the Niagara River and entered Fort Niagara basically
Mm-hmm.
without too much trouble. And once they took the fort, they just continued onward. Now, what I thought was amazing doing this article that I have been doing on Forsyth is the fact that the Tuscaroras, who originally were, if you know anything about Tuscarora history, they were all part of the Trail of Tears, but
Mm-hmm.
some of the families and tribes were given land up here by the Iroquois Nation. And what I found amazing was that as the British were coming down Ridge Road, they had a ruse. The British had burnt their villages, and yet they stayed and fought a delaying action. That to me was amazing, and it gave Polly enough time to send her. Correct me if I'm wrong. To send her children, 2 of her older sons, eastward to safety, and she stayed at the tavern with her 2 youngest, and that to me was that I can't even imagine that. I can't imagine that she would do that because they had just
Absolutely.
burnt everything. Now,
Yeah.
let me ask you this. Here's a woman by herself, children, running this tavern, and it's a successful tavern. It's on a major route. War of 1812. What happens? The British are down the road, but you have U.S. Cav stationed at the tavern, and it was a depot. So you can tell the rest of that story.
Yeah. To go back a second, so she didn't know about the Tuscaroras for who knows how long. But if they hadn't done what they did, this tavern would not be here. It would have been burned down so long ago. That's something that we have yet to find a good way of honoring that legacy here, because that is something that is absolutely wild that they did. So she was fortunate enough
Yes.
The British, because they had that delay, they stopped just 5 miles up the road.
Yeah.
And they took camp for the night at the next tavern up the road, which was a log tavern. And fortunate for us, the Gaines militia came through, and then shortly after that, the Vermont cavalry came through as their backup. So the Vermont cavalry are the ones that took over the tavern as their headquarters and made it a depot as well. That was really the saving grace for the tavern, and also a bit of a risk as well. You are right that Polly sent away her 2 boys. So boys would have been conscripted into the military had they actually come here. So that alone tells us that she was expecting that they were going to make it here. I don't think she had any doubt that they would show up at her tavern and likely take it over themselves. She could definitely have expected that. Fortunately for her, the Vermont cavalry did instead. And we don't know how many people they actually stationed here, but this was really their main provisions depot. There were over 1,000 barrels of beef, pork, whiskey, and flour in the barns. And we also know from just archaeological context that there was some sort of barrage of cannons here as well.
Right.
The next stop up was the barracks at Hardscrabble, which did get burned down by the British in one of their raids. And there were several raids throughout Nair County throughout the War of 1812. A lot of people don't know some of those stories of people who also stayed behind and either got captured, or in the case of, there's one boy up in Wilson who took all of his cows into the woods. You ever heard that story? The British showed up and his parents went to face the British, and he took all their cow out in the woods to try and hide them from the British, because they would have taken them and just slaughtered them, not paid them for it. And his parents got captured and put in prison. And this boy came back with all the cows, and there was no one there for 3 years.
Oh,
so
really?
things like that happened out here.
Yeah.
It was definitely trying years. But fortunately for her, they never made it here. There were several attempts to get here by the British. I think most people probably know the burning of the Van Horn Mills. Right. That was an attempt to get here. Unfortunately, again, they got blocked by the swamps trying to come that way. So nature prevented them from getting up the road that way. So it was a constant fear, I'm sure, for those years. And of course, that is likely what aided her relationship with the young sergeant who was stationed here, Ezra Warren. And they had a illegitimate child and a very quick wedding before the war even ended.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah. Times will make things happen, you know?
Hey, listen, you're out in the woods. It's sort of like the Vegas thing. What happens in the woods stays in the woods out there. But it's true.
Yeah, and it did. I mean,
it's normal. And I don't think it's anything that was that frowned upon back then, because of the fact
it was frowned upon. Oh yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Ezra came from the family. So the Warrens are the really the pioneers of America. His family were the bankers that financed the expedition.
Okay.
So he's old family, old money. If you think of pretty much every rich, famous person that we ever know of is a descendant of the Warrens. The one that comes to mind most often on tours is Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift is related to Ezra Warren.
No kidding.
Yep. She gives us a shout out someday. That'd be great. But he's from real old money. And he actually was excommunicated from his family. He did not reconnect with them until the couple years before he died, actually. So late in his 70s, 80s, he reconnected with his family finally, who was left of it. All that time, all of his children, his marriage with Polly, not once did he ever have connection with that family in that time. So there were consequences for his actions, especially in old money.
See, I did not know he had old money. That's fascinating. Well, you know what really is fascinating is, we'll just jump around a little bit.
That's okay.
Polly is buried in the cemetery, the little cemetery behind the tavern, between her husbands.
Oh yeah.
Now I got to ask you, did Polly live live longer than Ezra, or
No, she died younger, actually. She died in these, say, in the midst of the Civil War, she passed away, I believe. Ezra lived a long life.
and this photo that's up there, you'll see the little star that would be Ezra's grave, and then probably be between her and the next one over there would be John Forsyth's. So that to me is always fascinates me when I come out there. I always pay my respects because of the fact it's like that is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I could live there knowing that my wife's last husband is
buried in the backyard.
just basically in the backyard.
Uh-huh.
But that's
Hey, don't mess with Polly.
Yeah, well, she was a strong woman. Those really back then,
Mm-hmm.
it was women were an entire different breed, entirely different breed.
And a tavern woman.
Yeah, I can't imagine it. I can't imagine it. Now, let me ask you this: when you guys first laid eyes on this tavern, and you guys decided we're going to buy this, we want to buy this. Did you envision a museum like you have a living history museum or a hobby farm? What did you guys envision?
No, honestly, and this you'll get the tour that I don't give everyone. We had no idea what we were going to do with this place. Really, at that point, I knew a very, very little bit of the history. Really, maybe a newspaper from the 1950s that said, "Oh, this was a cool tavern, War of 1812." That's really all I knew. And we had no idea how much of this place was actually going to be original when we got here. Obviously, things get painted, they get covered up. You have no idea what is here and if it's original or if it's after. You have no idea. We did not have any of the collection items here. So we didn't know that we had all of the family's possessions, all their letters, everything that makes our collection a whole nother ball game. None of that existed to us. So really, and by we, I mean, I convinced my family and friends to help with this project. And all our plan was that we were going to save this building, make sure it wouldn't collapse, and then figure it out from there. So in hindsight, I was crazy, and they were more crazy for listening to me. I would never again, but I attribute that to just being in this place. There's something about this place that is extremely powerful. And I think it's contagious. You come here, you fall in love with it even before you know the history. And once you know the history, you can't leave. You now live here. But yeah, we had no idea. And our original permits were really more looking into renting this out as like a bed and breakfast or like a wedding venue. That's really what we were at in the beginning of just how do we use it? What do we do with it? Unfortunately, it's not a great building for living in. Never really has been, because obviously it was designed to be a tavern, and it's very hard to take that away from a building. So it was really a tough building for its whole life after closing to have a purpose again. And I think it failed over and over again with different ideas just because it was never really cut out to be anything but a public space.
Right.
So yeah, we had no idea what to do with it. But fortunately, it was extremely intact. We had no problem getting on the National Register. It was a shoe-in. And then once that happened, all the collections started flooding back in. So that's when we really said, okay, this can only be a museum. There's no way that it can be anything but that. And then it was just easy after that. Once we knew it was a museum, then it's 501c3 time. It's going to the state. It's all the fun stuff.
Well, let me ask you. Let me just give a comment. I've noticed in a lot of the haunted historic locations that I've been in, it almost calls you. The vibration, like when you first walk in, it's like, yes, okay, I have to be here. This is something that I should be working for. I should be working with the people that are here. Let's try to save it. Let's try to go and work.
Yeah.
I'm going to come right out and ask you. Did you guys ever think that the place would be haunted or active, or where? Did you ever think that, or did you just think, well, you know what, maybe it's my imagination because I'm working in an older building?
So the tavern has a different feel to it. So I have to preference. I grew up in a horrifyingly haunted house to the point where I never want to go back to that whole area ever again.
Right.
So in that, I grew up with a feeling of constantly having something there watching you in a negative sense.
Yes.
The tavern feels like there's always energy here. There's always people watching you, but it's not a negative sense. So you definitely, I mean, when I first walked in here, it was during just an open house. So it was public and a lot of people around here. The first time I was in here alone, I think it still kind of felt like you are never alone here. This is never, it doesn't feel like a private space. It feels like a tavern. So there's definitely that to it. I can't say never. So anything scary negative is pretty rare here. For the most time, you feel like if you look over, there might be someone standing there, but it's never like they're standing there to scare you. It's just kind of like they're doing their own thing. You can do your own thing. It's kosher.
Yeah. You know, because I mean, you know a little bit of my history because I'm so used to doing going into some really nasty places, you know.
I can only imagine.
Some bad vibes. And I remember the first time I walked in there, and I think it was like the little 1812 muster or whatever I came out for.
Yep.
And I was like, wow. And that second floor was insane. That's all I'm going to say is I walked up there and I was just like, wow, you know, it just felt like there was just so much going on. There's so much swirling. And I remember asking you, do you think that maybe perhaps, Tyler, if we're really good and we'll give you a donation, do you think we could come up and, you know, my friends and we just investigate it? And you're like, sure. And we went there, and it is probably one of the most benign active places that I've ever been. Tyler, I'm going to tell you the truth. I usually fall asleep in every location I've ever been in. You know, I mean, old operating rooms at tuberculosis hospitals, morgues. I mean, I've slept in all of them. When I come there, it is just so calm, and it's almost as it's welcoming. And I sit there, like, especially on that second floor, and I sit there and I think to myself, my gosh, this is beyond anything that I've really experienced in any kind of an active location. The reason I'm bringing this up is the fact that do you feel that I'm a guy that feels that everything has some kind of energy, presence, life force, whatever. Do you think that the structure, and there's a theory, it's called a stone tape theory, where the structure will go and record things and keep the energy alive within that location? Do you think that the location is just like so thankful that you guys came in and really respected it and loved it, and it's turning it into this great living history museum?
I definitely think so. I think the building responds well to chaos. I think that when there's a lot of activity happening here, you can almost feel more of that positivity come through. When we're closed is when you can kind of feel the place gets heavy. There's a lot more like scary things happening, things that just are out of place. It gets almost like bored and frustrated. You can feel. Yes. I think when it's open, especially like tavern nights, the place just feels good, and I think you could just feel it from a mile away that you're going somewhere that is very central and has had that sort of energy for eons, talking thousands of years of being used for roughly the same purpose, and then 100 years-ish of being stagnant. So I think you feel it.
I agree, because unfortunately, for a lot of you guys that don't know the history of the recent history of the tavern, Tyler and I'm going to tell you what, the board of trustees and everything of this organization had to leap over huge legal and political potholes in order to get where they are today. And it's a shame that some of these local politicians did not recognize the true importance of the tavern. But you guys, through your efforts, I am just so thankful that you guys, I mean, I remember you even telling me you were willing to go to jail already to, because of what was going on. So I have to say that I have garnered so much respect for everybody that is on that board and what you guys have done. So it's unbelievable. But it is, I'm just going to tell everybody, and most people will know what proximity pods are, REM pods. We were there. I think it was like 2 of us or 3 of us. And we were there and we had them on every floor. And I'll never forget, Tyler, all of a sudden they all went on at once, which could be just a stray signal or whatever. But, they will go and they have these little clouds of electromagnetic, puffs, I call them, little clouds around the antennas. Well, all of them on every floor went, and my music box went off. And we were all looking at each other and say, hey, can you shut those off? And all of them went off. And this was when you were shut down because of this political turmoil. And I remember, I forget who said, gee, can you turn the one on the second floor? And it went on. And then we said, could you turn it off? It went off. Can you turn on the ones on the first floor? And it went off. It went on for like 15, 20 minutes. I was blown away. I have never, ever had anything like that happen. And it is one of those places that's great. And for everybody out there, you guys all know what spirit boxes are, and those crazy, I call them nosebleed boxes, the scanner boxes that scan frequencies. But recently, when we had one out there, we were in the basement. And the basement, I'm just going to tell you guys, the basement they actually have video of a shadow person walking across your furnace room, by the stairs, by your basement stairs. And I think I have a picture of the basement stairs. Yeah, that's right here. And they saw whatever it was off to the right. And somebody actually, I was leaning on the utility sinks, and somebody saw something kind of a shadow come up from behind me with an oblong head. And this was during that time when it was all shut down. And I think you're right about that. I think that it's the business of the location to have when there's all sorts of stuff going on and people were laughing, and it brings that energy. But I think it gets very, very subdued and very, very frustrated when it's there. Now, John, who sent me, the president, who sent me some of the things that happened to him, he described a discarnate voice, but he described your voice yelling, help, John, help, help. And he ran to see what was going on, and you're walking out of the tavern with a tool that he needed. Does that happen a lot? The voices?
Mimicking happens a lot. More so to people other than me, which is convenient. I will take that. Thank you. But yeah, that's a pretty common one. John's the only one who's actually been injured by it, so that was unfortunate.
Yeah,
but,
yeah, I know. That's why, because John is a super careful person about when we talk about this stuff. But it is amazing that we're already quickly running out of time, which is like, I hate it, but unfortunately we got an hour show. what are some of the upcoming events that you had? Because I'm going to come right out and tell you that I thought that here's a little thing of here's a little shot of the sheep herders. That was just an amazing display of dogs and that type of herding that you guys had out for Beltane, for the Beltane Festival. What are you guys doing next? What are you guys up to?
Next up for us in 2 weeks is the British are invading again. So as you've heard all this nice British history, we're going to relive a little bit of that trauma again in 2 weeks with a British encampment, really talking about like Revolutionary War and how you picked a side, what that meant for you, that sort of thing. We're also doing the Civil War encampment in August this year.
Oh, really?
Yes. August, we also have Joseph Ellicott coming for a sit-down formal dinner. That one should be really interesting. Tickets should be up pretty soon for that event. We're just trying to get our menus really squared away. And then into fall, we'll have more workshops, things of that nature. We're always still scheduling heritage skills workshops and lectures. If anyone has any ideas for any of that stuff, we're really trying to build a repertoire and next year really hit hard with some concert events. We're not quite at the point to be open every week on a regular schedule. Knock on wood, next year will be the year. So this year is kind of just a follow on social media, the website, look and see what's going on. And definitely follow us if you're kind of interested in anything that we're doing. And we do a lot of different things. So we probably have an event that people will like.
And I'm planning on working with you guys on a sort of a seance. We're going to talk about a seance evening and a public ghost hunt. We're going to work on those too. So guys, listen, you guys want to come out and see a beautiful location, a working hobby farm. It has just so much character, so much class. Come out to Cambria, New York, www.forsythtavern.com. Come on out and be a part of something that was a true part of history. And Tyler, I got to thank you for stopping by. And you know, I always talk about, I got a good question, and I always save this question for people who I like. Okay. You know, because believe it or not, Tyler, there are some guests that I don't like. So people I really like, I always save this question for. So you're ready for that? You ready?
It's okay.
And this is because it kind of just spurred in my brain because of the fact that, well, you know, you guys have that cemetery back there, you know, and I often wonder, the end of it all, Tyler, what do you want on your tombstone? What kind of epitaph would you like on your tombstone?
Oof. That one. You know, I bet I have a quote somewhere that I could pull. I have a few that I'd have to actually find, but I can say my family are old tavern bootleggers. I'd probably pull something from one of their quotes and slap it on there, something real stupid, but real meaningful. That'd kind of be my shtick. I
kind of like that. And I'm just going to tell you something. If you get cremated, you know where you're going to get dumped. Right in there with the sheep. I'm going to tell you that right now. That's not a bad thing.
Nope, I'll take it.
Tyler, thank you so much for being a guest. Stick on the line for a couple minutes so I can thank you properly off air. But this is something that history and hauntings go hand in hand. People really need to understand that. And by coming out and visiting the Forsyth Tavern, you guys are actually going out there and helping preserve this wonderful location. So, Tyler, I'll be back in a couple seconds, brother. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's just an amazing place. You guys got to take the time to go out there. It is one of those places that I just absolutely adore. And you guys know I was a docent up at Old Fort Niagara, and you guys know that I've done stuff with Civil War on the national parks, and I've done I feel that what we need to do now is we need to be able to give back. Everybody needs to give back. And I know that the paranormal community is big on preserving a lot of these locations. Forsyth Tavern is one of them. So, guys, think about that. Anyway, guys, I got to thank you guys for hanging out with me. It was a wonderful show. I was just so excited for Tyler to be on tonight. And I was so excited that you guys shared the night with me. So, guys, be good. We'll see you next week, Tuesday. Ciao, babies. And remember the Black Cat Lounge. What else? It's where the elite meet next to the dumpster transfer station. Take care, bud. Bye.